Good evening. We're here at Go Live Vegas Studios in the heart of Las Vegas. This is Full Tilt Vegas. I don't hear it echoing. Okay. Yeah, we're gonna bring on Brett here in about 20 minutes. We're gonna go through the NBA, and I think he's talking about the UFC. What is it? UFC fights. But before we do that, yeah, you can go ahead and get my book. It's in the book Winning Ways. I kind of rushed over here real quick, so yeah, well, I had to do it this week too. So you can go ahead and get my book. It's in the book Winning Ways, Avi. And yeah, YouTube. YouTube. Well, you can see my YouTube channel. It's Delatory 360 Entertainment. You can see all my videos: blackjack, craps, roulette. I got horse racing. I got poker. I got Keno. How slot machines work. On episode 14 is with Anthony Curtis. He has a Las Vegas advisor here. He came on my show, been all over, Travel Channel. Really good X card counter. In episode 17 is on poker. You want to go ahead and see that. It was Rob Goldstein. And so you can go ahead and see that. But you can see all my videos on Delatory 360 Entertainment. So you want to go do that. And don't forget, smash that like button and hit the bell, get all my notifications, or any other show we have here on Go Live Vegas Studios. And you can get the download the 80s music app they have here on Go Live Vegas Studios, so you can hear it 24/7. 80s sounds, really good music. Yes, so what I'm going to talk about, my little segment here, I'm going to talk about blackjack. Really short on blackjack because I was in a casino a couple of days ago and these people were asking me because I split sixes, and they go, "Why are you doing that?" Well, the dealer had a 5 showing. Anytime the dealer has 2 through 16, they got to take a hit. Now, you always assume the down card is a 10 value card, which is 10, Jack, Queen, King. So the dealer is weak. That's when you take advantage, when the dealer is weak. So I had 6s and the dealer had a 5. And so I was playing $25, so I split them. I put 25 and I got a 4. So what I do, I double down again and I split those. And no, I doubled down on that. Then my next card, I can't remember what I got, but I stood on that, and the dealer did bust. So that's what you should be doing when you get 6s or 5s. Always think of 6s like 5s, because if you get 2 6s, make sure the dealer is weak, which is 2 through 6. That's called a stiff hand, and they have to take a hit. And that's when you take advantage of the dealer, because the ratios and percentages and the dealer's favor to win at blackjack. So when you get 6s, you get 2 6s. So you want to split those. And I'm using my deck here. See if I can show you there. I told him I was going to do this. You can see there's Peyton. It's my grandson. It was quite a while back. He's a lot older than that, even though I look 29. So yeah, when you get 6s, just split them if the dealer's weak. Same thing when you get 2 5s. You get 2 5s, do the same thing. Because if you get 2 6s and then you get another 6, and the dealer is showing, some of the books I've read way in the past, you're supposed to be using basic strategy, but I do use that, but I'm more of a card counter, so I kind of know what's coming up. Not guaranteed, but kind of a good idea. So if I get another 6, now I have 3 6s. I already split those 2. I'll split that again, and that's only when the dealer has a 2 through 6. Now there is times I have split 5s and 6s when the dealer has a 7 showing. Now you got to remember something. You always assume the down card's a 10 value card, but I was card counting, and I already knew the count was low, so I probably wasn't going to bust or get another stiff hand. So what I did is I went ahead and doubled down, and I think I got a 3. So I wasn't going to bust by taking that hit, because now I had 12. Now I was going to bust because you had a 10. The only thing that would have saved me is a 9, but I hit a 3, and because the count was actually low, because when the count's high in 10 value cards, that means a lot of tens are coming out. When the count is really, really low, and I think it got down to I think it was 12. That's really low. So that means all the face value cards already came out. So I was looking for cards that I will not bust with. You can use it both ways, the high-low count, but the problem is you're probably going to get a bunch of small cards. So you're better off using it when the count is rich in tens. You can use the other way because sometimes you can't get up from the table because you got to stay there and keep counting. Now, if you have a partner, it's called a shadow. You can say, I'm going to be back, and they'll keep the count. Well, you can go ahead and go to episode, 14, and I think it was episode 2. Those should be those two, the main ones. Might have been on, what was that other one? It was with the highlight show where me and Gypsy I was talking about blackjack on that show too. So, but mainly a lot of card counters use that for high in tens, which you can do. You can do that. But always remember, a split, if the dealer's weak, always split 5s and 6s. It's the same thing. Now, people talk about, do I split 8s? Everybody knows that. Well, mostly everybody. You split 2 8s. Yes, you can split 8s and aces. You can do that. But you got to remember something. When you get most casinos here in Las Vegas, almost every one of them, unless it's owned right out and it's not a franchise or a big company, corporation, the house does allow you, after you split aces, you here especially on the strip, once you split them, you don't get no more cards. You get those 2 cards and you get 1 and 1, and that's it. Doesn't matter if you get another ace. That's all you get. There's a card here, and it looks like this. This is a double down, and this would be this is a double down, and this here would be the 1 card for if you get aces. So another ace or any other card. So you can do that. When you're splitting 8s, now I tell people, don't, just because you got ace and aces and right away they're so quick to double down or split. I says, they're not even looking at the dealer's card. I see a lot of people at the table, they're not even looking at the dealer's card. You got to look at their card first. Whatever you do in blackjack, you have to base it on the dealer's up card. That's what you base your play on. Not you're looking, oh man, I got 2 10s. Maybe I should split these. No. If your dealer's got a 9 or a 10, you always assume the down card is a 10 card. So they have 20. And when if you're not card counting, and if you split 2 10s, you might get 2 stiff hands. You might get a 2 through 6. Now you got 2 stiff hands. So that's why you don't want to do it. You always key on the dealer's up card, and then assume the down card's a 10 value card, and then you play your hand from there. That's how you should be playing. Now, once you get into card recognition or card counting or learn basic strategy, I do show that in my book on blackjack, how to card count and use card recognition. Card recognition is seeing, maybe it doesn't matter if there's 3, 4 players or 7 players at the table. When you see, say you see, 14 cards come out and there's 7 players, and you only see 2 10 value cards. You know what that means? Especially if you're playing at least a double deck. Can't do a single deck, because if there's that many people, the dealer's going to pick up all the cards. If you're playing 2 decks, more likely, if you have 7 players, you're going to get 1 more hand. You usually get two plays off a 2 deck shoe, but not a single. Once you do a single, 7 players, even 5 players, they'll pick up the cards and reshuffle. So that's using card recognition when you see 2 10s out of 14. So you got 12 face value cards, which are 2 through 9, and then 2 10s. So the next hand will probably be face cards. So people do put more money when it's they think 10s are coming out. Now you got to be careful when you do that on a 4 deck, 6 deck, 8 deck shoe. That doesn't mean that the when you see all small cards coming out, that doesn't mean a bunch of tens are coming out. No, because you have all those decks, especially you have 6 or 8 decks. So that's why you have to go into card counting and not use card recognition. You can use card recognition right in the beginning, so you kind of have an idea of balance of cards, but you still have to be card counting, which is not that hard. Once you learn a card count, you can be drinking, you know what I'm saying? Drinking and card count, I can do it. It doesn't bother me. At the beginning, I didn't do it for probably about a month. And then I got bored, so I had a few drinks here and there. And then I got really good at it, card count. I mean, I got so good at it, I could count a deck of cards. I can count a deck of cards in 23 seconds. You should be able to do it when you get real good. If you get really, really good, you should be able to count it in 25 seconds. Some people say 30. I say at least 25. I mean, I couldn't flip the cards over fast enough to get any higher than 23 seconds. And I don't know, anybody can. If they can flip the cards faster than me, then so be it. But if you go on episode 24, we did the Unicon, and Brett was there with me, and Aaron Phillips was there, and I did use one deck, and I did do a simulation on card counting. I used one deck, and Brett took 4 cards, I think Aaron took 3. I really thought they took more, but they didn't. But I said, one of you guys got 4 10-value cards, and Brett had all 4. So you can learn to card count. It takes practice, and I do teach you how to do that in my book. And one of the most things that I tell people, don't tell anybody you know how to card count. Don't do that. Trust me, that's going to come back to bite you. And I told that story a couple of times on a couple of my episodes on blackjack. But don't tell anybody, not even your friends. I mean, trust me, when they start having too many drinks, they're going to say something dumb, because that happened to me. I had to get up and leave the table. So just keep it to yourself. You want to have a little team. That's a different story. If you want to see that movie 21, actually the movie is kind of I don't know, I think it's kind of dumb, because a lot of stuff that happened on that movie 21 really didn't happen. I know some of the MIT team guys. Anthony Curtis knows. He knows some of the guys too. Those were other card counting teams when he was here. Andy Block was one of the main one. I'm going to go see if I can talk to Anthony and see if I can get Andy Block on one of my episodes. But yeah, they were from the MIT team, and they lost like half the money they won. And I do talk about it in my book. The 2 ways I know how to count is the king, or it doesn't matter, a 10-value card. A 10-value card is a -1, and any face value card is a +1. And you also use the aces as a +1. Now, in the other method, that's Edward Thorpe's method. All kings, they're a negative. No, hold on. Excuse me. I knew I was going to get that. I've done that so many times. The 10-value card is a -2. And the face value card is a +1. So anytime you get 2 smalls and 1 10-value card, it's a push. It cancels itself out. That's the John Patrick method. That's the method I use, because I count every card. Edward Thorpe's method, which was the first method, the king, all the 10-value cards, and the aces are a -1. And the small cards are a +1. So it's a different method. I don't care for it, because there is a flaw in it, and I do say that, and I can prove it. You go in my book, and I get out, I think it's 72 cards. I'm not sure. I think it's in my book. But I get out the same exact cards, and I use 3 decks, which is actually the ace through, it's actually all of them. But you start at 0 on the Edward Thorpe method, and you get to 0. And the John Patrick said whatever deck you start at. One deck is 41, get rich at 49. 6 decks is 25, get rich at 49. 8 decks start at 27 and get rich at 59. So it's a little different method, but you're counting every card. Now the MIT team, the method they used, they didn't count 7, 8, 9. I said, why wouldn't you count those cards? I know why they don't count them, because they're using the aces as a -1. I know why they do it. But when I ran that simulation, the count was off. Their count is off. So when I did both those simulations on both of them myself on the table, I saw that their count was off. I did it another time, and it was close, but it was still off. Now, card counting doesn't mean it's guaranteed you're going to get the card. You know what's coming out. It's not what it means. It means you're looking for 10 value cards. So, yeah, I have it in my book. I pulled out all the cards. I use them for both methods, and their count, their method. That method, I don't care if the guy was a professor at I think it was from MIT, and he ran it through a 704 computer back then. But you got to remember something. Just because somebody invented something, that don't mean that's the way it stays. Like our airplane. Can you imagine the Wright brothers airplane? You can't get 122 people on that plane. Everything evolves. So this method that I use, I learned from John Patrick. He has other videos too. I'm gonna give him a plug on blackjack. It's got roulette and some other games. I think slot machine, a mini box. But that's why they lost in August. I think it was a 90. I think it was a 90. Might have been 95. They lost half the money they won. They won, I think, about $8 million. They lost half of it because they weren't. To me personally, they weren't counting 7, 8, 9. They were using them to split and double down, but they weren't counting them. I says, I think that's wrong because I proved it in my book. There is a page on it. It shows you same exact cards, and the count does get off. Now, this is my opinion. You can check it out. So you can go ahead and get my book. It's in the book many ways, and you can look at that on blackjack. And there's a story there on blackjack. That book, I have 3 real stories that happened to me, and so I do tell those stories, and I just want to get a little personal with the reader. That's why I had those stories in, and this is very early when I was getting into more and more into blackjack, roulette, and craps. Craps I've been playing longer, but the next one I started was blackjack, and then I got into roulette. Now, a lot of people go, roulette? I go, trust me, just read up on roulette, and it'll blow your mind. I go through ratios and percentages and show how high the casino is, their percentage to win against you. But I break that down, and I use the ratios against them. You spend a little bit more money, but your chances of winning go up way up. So you can go ahead and look at that. I guess I'm going to get off here. We're going to have Brett coming on. We're going to run his commercial. And towards the end, we're going to run my commercial. And then we're going to both be on towards the end. So stay tuned. Any of you Twitter out there, Periscope, Facebook, what's the other platforms? TikTok, Twitch, like Twitch in your eye, YouTube. You guys want to go ahead and ask Brett any of the NBA questions about what happened today or what's going to happen, I guess, in the next few days, or the what was it? UFC. I keep thinking about the college. UFC, UNLV. So, yeah, you can call in. We would love to have you call, especially Twitter. We're getting a lot of traffic with Twitter. So, it's just great. So go ahead and we'll go ahead and run this commercial, and I'll see you at the end of the show.
What's going on, everybody? Brett Lawson here, co-host of Full Tilt Vegas and local sports analyst. Just a quick heads up, moving forward, I will be a regular part of the show where my segment, the back end of the show, will focus on everything in the world of sports gambling. You will still have Richard's insights and expertise and everything from his book, Winning Ways, in the first part of the show where he will dabble with table games and overall floor-related gambling, where my part of the show will focus on analyzing matchups, odds, totals, money lines, spreads, props, overall gambling, psychology, and philosophy, and just the things you need to know if you want to become a sports bettor or if you already are a sports bettor and want to sharpen your skills in that racket. So stick around. Moving forward, you will have both ends of the spectrum in the world of gambling with Richard and myself moving forward on Full Tilt Vegas.
This is John Cena. I just wanted to send you a congratulations on your podcast. Thoughts count anywhere. Because indeed they do. Thoughts are important. I mean, what would we do without them? And how can they not count anywhere? Is there a place that thoughts don't count? I can't think of one. Well, I just wanted to say thank you very much, congratulations, and good luck on the podcast. Thoughts count anywhere, because they do.
right, keeping it rolling here on Full Tilt Vegas, and you heard Richard, and he is correct as you see me here for the first time in, I believe, 2 weeks. I am back in action. Feels great to be here back in the Go Live Vegas studios in front of all of you watching and listening on the Go Live Vegas app and through Alexa, so we appreciate you tuning in across our various platforms. Again, happy to be back here in the studio. I missed my spot here, and a lot to talk about. Not so much last week, so I guess if there was a week where I was absent, it was a good one to be last week because it's kind of that awkward lull period. But here we are, late February, early March, and things are already starting to pick back up. Of course, NBA talk in terms of the betting ramifications and just the total season outlook now that we are on the other side of the All-Star break. Things are certainly starting to take form there with the association. And, of course, college hoops is going to start exploding now as we get closer to the conference tournaments, which in turn will lead us into March Madness. So a lot to talk about in the world of basketball betting. Was able to recap the Super Bowl plays a couple of weeks ago on the phone. So last time I was on the show, last time I was in the studio was previewing the Super Bowl, and then I was on that week after to recap it. So for any of you who kind of hung their hats on my plays, I appreciate it. I'm happy it worked out for you. We had a very good day there a couple of weeks ago with the result of that Rams-Bengals matchup. And again, last week, kind of a lull period where I kind of take a break. A lot of bettors do. A lot of even the sports media personalities in general tend to take their vacations so they could reload for right now. So here we are. March is here. The spring is arriving. The weather and temperature in Vegas is starting to reflect that as it is all over the country. And despite some grim news on the international front, definitely a lot to look forward to in the world of sports and sports gambling. So I'm going to dive in and explain, again, the past couple of months you've seen me just really in Go Live Vegas in general, whether it be in the morning where I was before and now here with Richard, talking a lot of football, talking a lot of betting throughout the NFL playoffs. But now I'm going to transition into basketball and explain the intricacies of NBA and college hoops betting. But before I get into that, I want to get into something that's a little bit, I guess you could say, a little bit more time sensitive and a little bit more immediate relevant, and that is UFC 272. About to be underway here tonight. Prelims are going down right now here in Las Vegas at the T-Mobile Arena. So action underway. Pay-per-view action beginning in just about 30 minutes at 7 o'clock Pacific time, as it always does. Not necessarily what you'd call I guess you could say a stat card, but overall a pretty good card with some pretty relevant names who are in the hunt of contendership. And, of course, in the main event, two names who have been immediate contenders in the recent past in Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal. And that's exactly where I want to begin with here tonight. Colby Covington and Jorge Masvidal, a welterweight main event. Both of these two fighters have on two different occasions challenged Kamaru Usman, the number one ranked fighter pound for pound in the world today, for that welterweight crown, and both times coming up short. And now here we are, former friends, former training partners, and roommates, now bitter rivals. There's a lot of heat, a lot of bad blood and venom heading into this fight. The animosity has only built over the past few years, and even though there will be a lot of intensity in just a few hours here in Las Vegas when those two meet face-to-face in the octagon, the betting odds don't necessarily reflect that. At least in the immediate sense, they reflect a very lopsided matchup, and a big reason why is because of the styles at play here. Now, a big thing I want to clarify before I dive into the matchup itself. When betting combat sports, whether it be boxing, MMA, anything, when you decide to bet the fight game, you are ultimately betting on styles more than anything. Yes, the past opponents matter. You know, striking, specifically MMA, striking, takedown defense, efficiency in grappling scenarios, just your overall output, all that matters. But at the end of the day, it all goes out the window depending on who you are fighting. And the first thing you have to look at is what kind of fighters, especially in MMA. In boxing, it matters too, but it's a little bit more concise because they're all ultimately doing one thing, throwing their hands. And in MMA, there's a lot at play, so therefore a lot of different aspects in terms of the disciplines and the backgrounds of the fighters as martial artists have a lot to do with what you are going to see. Now, for the first and foremost, Colby Covington, he is at right now minus 400. That bumped up to where he initially was at minus 310. A big favorite. He's getting the chalk, and a lot of action went towards Covington in the books and on those online mobile apps over the past couple of weeks, which has really caused the jump that you see now, him at a much bigger price at minus 400, with Jorge Masvidal coming back as the plus 255 dog. Initially the plus 255 dog, and now bumped up to 300. The books want to get more betting value on Masvidal now that so much money as of late has come in on Covington. And there's a reason for that. MMA bettors tend to be diehard fans. They follow the sport religiously. They follow these fighters throughout their careers, and they know a lot about them individually. And it's clear in terms of what the odds project and what, in terms of the betting handle projects, in terms of where the public money is going. Colby Covington is the play here. Now, again, you're looking at that value just like a football money line bet or a baseball or basketball money line bet. When you're betting the money line, right, just on that straight up outcome, you are trying to attach yourself to the best possible value. That way you could, when your ticket does cash, if it does cash, you will walk away with the most money possible. It's kind of hard to do that unless you have a damn big bankroll if you're betting minus 400 with Colby Covington. Let's look at the matchup really quick here between these two fighters. Obviously, Colby Covington, if you know anything about the sport, the first thing you're going to think of is the wrestling. A former All-American at Oregon State. One of the, in terms of utilizing wrestling in the octagon in an MMA type environment, probably one of the best in the sport, and maybe other than Kamaru Usman, the reigning champ and the only fighter who's really proven to be able to give Colby Covington all he can handle and then some. Outside of that, there's probably nobody in this division right now who can out-wrestle Colby Covington, and he makes that wrestling known from the get-go. A lot of pressure early on. We see level changes. We see pressure against the cage, and we see that relentless gas tank constantly coming into play because of the cardio that is deeply rooted back into his days as a wrestler. So when you're talking about Colby Covington, the first thing you have to think of is how is he going to get Jorge Masvidal on the mat, and will he try to get Jorge Masvidal on the mat early on? One thing that's particularly interesting about Covington's style is that, yes, he is a great wrestler. He's great at the pressure and the level changes to get his opponent to the canvas, but what he also does is incorporate striking patterns very well. Not necessarily what you call complex combinations, kind of simple, but he mixes them in very well with the volume and the pressure and just the sheer onslaught and the intensity of what he throws in your face. If he can't get you back against the cage, he'll throw a couple of 1-2s or 3 or 4 punch combinations, linear punches that just try to make you move your head, just kind of, I guess you could say, center your gravity, knowing that you're going to be in a scrap, while also having to prepare for that takedown. And that's where Covington seems to time it so well. He lures his opponents into striking with them as he starts to throw more in his own right, and once they do that, that's when he sets up that double leg takedown or tries to shoot on you and get you into the cage and then try to wear you out from there, taking away your striking advantage if that is the case, and also the imposing his will in terms of the cardio and endurance aspect. He averages north of 4 takedowns per fight, so he's very active in that regard. And what's interesting, though, he also has the record for the most strikes ever landed in a welterweight fight. Again, as we saw in the 2 fights against Kamaru Usman, he's not going to go in there and immediately try to take you down. He's going to try to bait you in, try to close the distance with his striking, and once he makes you think that it's more of a striking-oriented affair, that's when he goes back to the wrestling pedigree, and that's what makes Colby Covington, with a record of 16-3-0, so effective, with his only 2 losses in recent memory being, again, to the best fighter in the world and the current 170-pound champ, Kamaru Usman. Looking on the other side at Jorge Masvidal, the veteran, the journeyman, who for a long time was kind of considered just that up until recently. We saw him have a monumental 2019 where he defeated Darren Till, where he had the knockout of the year, one of the knockouts of the decade, hell of all time, against Ben Askren, as well as the fastest knockout of all time. And that kind of propelled him into superstardom. Next thing you know, he's fighting Nate Diaz for the BMF title, and then he's getting himself into the title picture. And it was around that time when this beef, just about 2.5, 3 years ago, with Covington started to heat up. In that time, we've seen Usman only twice in 2 matchups, Masvidal only twice in 2 matchups against Usman. One of those was a one-sided affair where Usman pressured Masvidal up against the cage, something that could be a factor tonight. And the second matchup, none of that even mattered, as Usman landed a big right hand after a beautiful setup, knocking Masvidal out cold in one of the best knockouts you will see in the welterweight division or anywhere else. So Masvidal's really been on the both sides of the coin. He's had the brutal knockouts. He has suffered the brutal knockouts, and that is because Jorge Masvidal is a fighter. He may not be the first man you think of when you're talking about mixed martial artists, but he's going to be one of the very first you think of when you think of fighters. At the end of the day, this is cage fighting, this is prize fighting, and because of that, he always has a chance. If you look at Masvidal's style, it's a very interesting style in contrast with Covington's. The fluidity on the feet, the ability to manage distance and throw different combinations. He's a lot more sophisticated with his hands, where Covington may be a little bit more basic with his punches. Masvidal will throw a little bit more at you because he's more of a comfortable boxer. That is his style. That is his MO. He's found most of his success with just that. That being said, he actually is a lot tougher than people give him credit for when fighting off his back. He knows how to at least defend himself against the cage. So I think a lot of this won't necessarily be Covington takes Masvidal down 8-9 times like a old school George St. Pierre fight. I don't necessarily think so. I think actually Masvidal may fend off Covington for a bit here. The question is, will the cardio hold up? Once you get to that wall, that 2.5, that round 2.5, 3, where those round props usually are set, basically halfway between the fight. Once you get to that fatigue wall, that's where Covington tends to thrive from that point onward, which is why so many of his fights go by way of decision, and that's sometimes where we see Masvidal kind of fall short. As the bout goes on, he gets worn down, and in a stylistic matchup with the classic boxer versus striker, that is going to come into play. At least that will be part of the intention of Colby Covington to bring that into play, and that is why I'm leaning with Covington to get the win here, but more on that in a moment. Masvidal is 5-7 in bouts that go to scorecards. He actually has, I believe it's 17 of his 35 wins are by way of judges' scorecards, so he actually is better in those circumstances than a lot of people give him credit for. We think that he's just, since he has that knockout prowess and the striking advantages over a lot of his opponents, we think that he's the kind of guy who wins either before. I get a tweet here, Brett, if you take on Richard in the cage, who would win? I'm probably leaning Richard given what he knows. I'd have to go back to the old high school wrestling days and pray the double leg works. But Richard showed me some things, and I'd be weary of that. He knows a thing or two. I'd rather have Richard corner me in whatever fight I have coming up. I think that may be better suited for me. But ultimately, what we have here in a matchup, Covington's 34 years of age, Masvidal's 37 years of age. They both have had 2 shots at the title and have come up short. This kind of, in a way, represents maybe the last chance, at least in the immediate horizon, with Kamaru Usman as champion. And if Usman were to go up in weight, you have to wonder what the future is for that division. It could be determined here tonight. Oh, that's from a fight that's going on right now. If you, any of the tweets you, because again, this is ongoing. We have prelims going on right now. So, if you're watching on any of our social media platforms here on Go Live Vegas, that is what these tweet graphics are alluding to. And again, if you're listening on Alexa or on the Go Live Vegas app, we appreciate it as we are rolling here on Full Tilt. So again, that is the kind of the nuts and bolts of the matchup, the classic wrestler versus the classic striker type of scenario, but it's more so than just one guy is good at takedowns and the other guy is good at boxing. It's interesting because both of them are almost overlooked in those aspects in terms of how they conflict each other. Meaning Covington's a much better striker than people realize, and Masvidal is a much better grappler than people realize. He is not, however, a good enough grappler to survive a situation where Colby Covington has him against the cage the entire duration of the bout and is taking him down at will. Either his endurance is going to break first or his body will break first, allowing Covington to go in for the kill from that situation. So the question is, how long can Masvidal stay standing, and can he maintain distance, working jabs, working a lot of the feints and the head movements that we know him for, those explosive rapid-fire type of counters that even sometimes come from awkward angles and positions. That is what he's going to have to rely on to withstand the forward pressure and the sheer volume of Colby Covington's onslaught. And that's what makes, when you have a wrestler like a Covington or even like a Kamaru Usman, so difficult. When you have a guy who's becoming comfortable with his striking to where he doesn't immediately have to go in and shoot on you, it's going to make for a much more difficult opponent and a much tougher fight regardless of the stakes. And the stakes here, given the intensity and the fact that there could be yet another title shot on the line in the near future for the winner, I think it's safe to say that the stakes are pretty high. So again, it'll be interesting how this plays out. Even though Masvidal's 5-7 in bouts that go to the scorecards, as recent history will tell you that that situation plays against him. But again, he has won 17 fights via decision. He is better in that regard than people give him credit for. And if it were against anybody else other than Colby Covington, maybe that would come into play. Given the style and given the wrestling prowess, I don't think that will be a factor. So I'm leaning Covington, but again, at -400, you don't have much value there. So for the official pick, I'm looking at Covington via decision, which is currently priced at -115. Again, I like Covington from top position. He can do a lot of good things, ground and pound. Obviously, he has submission skills. But I don't think, even if he does get Masvidal on his back, I don't think he finishes him there. I think Masvidal's at least well skilled enough to be able to withstand that and work his way back to the feet. I think it's going to be more of a wear and tear through just the sheer, I keep saying that, the sheer volume, the wear and tear through the volume of it, not so much one takedown where Covington stays on top the whole time, but rather multiple takedowns or clinching positions against the cage, that constant leaning from a great wrestler like Colby starting to wear down Masvidal again as you get to the fatigue wall that you find in between rounds 2 and 3. And that's why I also like this fight to go over. The official round prop is at 4.5 at -165. I like that. And I am parlaying these two together. I like the Covington via decision and the over at -165. Now, again, not a lot of value there individually. Certainly not a lot of value when just playing Colby outright on the money line. But if you parlay these together and try to stack them together, even if they're both minus money, with the favorites, you could have a maximized profit there rather than just saying, I think Covington's going to win. I don't care how. I'm firing on him at -310 or now -400 since that's been bumped up with all the betting handles. So you have to kind of approach it in a nuanced type of way. You can't just say, I think Covington's going to win. I'm going to bet that. Be more specific. And that is really, because this is just one specific example here with a fight coming up in a couple of hours, but this is something that's evergreen and something you will hear me talk about right here on Full Tilt in all occasions for a big-time fight, whether it be boxing or MMA. Bet the story of the fight. I was here for weeks talking about how to bet NFL playoffs, and notice how I incorporated a lot of props, a lot of, game-specific type of bets. A lot of the plays that wound up cashing in the Super Bowl when I was here just a few weeks ago, those were exactly that. Those type of bets, situational-based bets, based off of how I felt the game was going to go at that time, and I lucked out. In fighting, it's a little bit more of a coin flip, obviously, but you want to take that same approach. You want to bet what you think and what you strongly feel will happen on a more complex, focused approach than just betting the winner. Not to say sometimes you can't just bet the winner. Sometimes you may find a great, Jorge Masvidal at +300 is a hell of a dog price, and he's a great striker. If he catches Colby Covington with some crazy knee like he caught Ben Askren, or he cuts him open like he did with Nate Diaz, and that fight had to be stopped because Nate Diaz I believe it was his lip was dangling off his face. If that's the case, Jorge Masvidal is going to have his hand raised and be the winner as a massive underdog. So it depends on what you're betting here. If you bet Jorge Masvidal because you think he could win with a lucky shot because he does have a puncher's chance, then it's great value. But if you're betting Colby Covington because, again, you like the wrestling, you like the cardio, and you like the way he implements the striking on top of it, then you have to bet it on a more nuanced type of basis because, again, you're not going to get jack squat betting 400. So when you're taking a favorite that big and a favorite with odds that steep and chalk that heavy, settle down, look at how you think the fight will go, and the best thing is now with these online sports books and these numerous websites accompanying them, you can find all types of plays and props that you could fire on that are more specific. You could fire on whether you think a fighter will win on via submission, TKO, knockout, decision. You could fire on the over the under, like I talk about. A lot of times for heavyweight fights, that over unders earlier in the bout, around 2.5 to 3 rounds. For a fight like this, less. No, I guess you could say obviously someone could get knocked out, but that's less of a factor, and it's more about the stylistic matchup, and it's more likely to go to the decision. Therefore, the round prop is set much higher, and there's a chalk price attached for Colby winning via decision. Again, at 170.65 and -115 respectively, which is what I'm playing. So again, it's favorite money there. It's not as valuable as plus money. Obviously, whenever you're going to bet a dog, you kind of rub your palms together and sweat it out, even though it's a little bit more nerve-wracking because you are taking someone who's not favored to win, but you know the payout will be that much better. This may not be the case. However, you probably will sit there, at least if you know what you're watching and you have followed the trajectory and the careers and the styles of both these fighters, you will sit there more comfortably thinking that even though I may not cash out huge betting these favorite prices, it's still more likely to happen because of everything I've seen from Colby Covington as of late. And if you pair those together, you do still have a chance to profit. So it's not like you're walking away with nothing here. You're still going to walk away with something. And if it happens on the other side where Masvidal winds up knocking him out, because I certainly, despite, again, being underrated in those scenarios, I don't see a chance in hell where Masvidal goes the distance with Covington. If this goes to the scorecards, it's all Colby for me. Masvidal's going to have to get him out of there. And again, I think if he does, he will have to get him out of there early, maybe within the first round or two, because once you get to that halfway mark of the second round, heading into the third round, I truly believe this bout will start playing into the favor of Colby Covington. So that's my gauge on it right there. I like Covington via -115 to pick up the decision victory. I think the wrestling will be a factor. I think he takes Masvidal down throughout the duration of the bout around 2 or 3 times. Maybe not even keep him down there very long. I think, again, Jorge kind of shows the resolve and the scrappiness he does have on the ground and fighting off his back. But every time he works himself back up, he's just going to have to deal with Covington either in his face, throwing leather, or dropping down, changing levels, and attacking his legs or his midsection, whether it be against the cage or in the center of the octagon. Either way, that's bad news. So if he could survive the pressure and the intensity, we'll have to see what happens. Covington, again, despite being underrated as a finisher, isn't necessarily known as a finisher, especially as of late. More about the pressure, the control, and that just relentless intensity that gasses opponents out and wears them down, and I think that will be a display once again here. Again, Masvidal, you can make the case maybe the scrappier fighter and even the more dangerous fighter if the fight remains standing and a lot of striking sequences and exchanges take place. But I think Colby, being the wrestler that he is and being the incredibly smart fighter that he is, say what you want about his antics outside the octagon, inside the octagon, his IQ is as high as it gets, and he is a smart, technical fighter. I think that shows. And as much as I respect game-bred Jorge Masvidal, and as much as I've loved what he's done with his career, really making a name for himself, starting at the humblest of all origins, much different than Covington's route, being the prestigious amateur athlete, really a tale of two fighters here, and through all their history together, and now in the past few years as individuals, it will be interesting to see how this all plays out. Even though I do think Covington controls the fight and ultimately wins it, the intensity and the tension will be so palpable. This main event, despite not being for a title, this welterweight main event is what makes the UFC, MMA, and combat sports not just great to bet on, but great to watch, and that much better if you do have some action on it and it cashes. And that's my action for the main event of UFC 272. Across the board, and looking at the rest of the card, I like Kevin Holland to pick up the win against Alex Oliveira. I also think the Moicano Dos Anjos fight is really, really interesting there, at the point where a lot of people may be overlooking it. But again, betting value isn't necessarily super strong on these cards, or on this particular card in these bouts. And I think a lot of it's because a good portion of these matchups, despite being intriguing, it's clear who the better fighter, at least this point in time, is for most cases on this card, and the betting odds reflect that in terms of the gap you see between the favorites and the underdog. So I'm staying away from the rest of the card, just not a whole lot of value. Have some strong opinions on some of the bouts, but the strongest opinion I have is ultimately on this main event, and that's why I'm playing the favorite via decision, Covington -115 one more time for those who may have missed it. And then, of course, the over 4.5 and -165, stacking those on top of each other. I think Covington goes and dominates the scorecards and gets his hand raised, picks up another victory, and brings up the question once again, can he defeat Kamaru Usman? Because at this point, Usman is looking just to clean out the division 2 times over. Again, beating Masvidal twice, beating Covington twice. I don't know what else there can be other than maybe a third fight between the winner of this bout and Usman before he goes on to other pastures, possibly 185 for a super fight against Israel Adesanya, who just defended his gold just a couple of weeks ago when I actually was here the last time in studio, the night before the Super Bowl, in that rematch where he defended against Robert Whittaker in what was a great bout. So obviously a lot at play here in terms of the future. No, a title is not on the line, but the winner of this fight could once again find himself fighting for that title and maybe what will be Usman's last hurrah at 170. So on top of all of it, this is more about the bragging rights. This is more about the bad blood, and damn it, I'm here for it. And anyone who's a combat sports fan should be too. So make sure to tune into that tonight. And again, there will be plenty more betting analysis. We have a lot of good fights. Dillian White and Tyson Fury are coming up. Obviously, there's with everything going on in Ukraine and Russia, the upcoming bouts of Alexander Usyk and Vasily Lomachenko are kind of up in the air. But again, we still have a lot of fights. Canelo Alvarez and Dmitry Bivol, Gennady Golovkin versus Moreta. Like, there's a lot to break down here in the next few months, really throughout the rest of the calendar year in both boxing and MMA. And I will really dive into all of it the best I can, because if you've been following the show, if you've been following me and my career here on Go Live Vegas, you may have picked up just by watching me or listening to me. You may have picked up that I'm a big football guy, but now it's my time to really show you how much I love combat sports in the fight game, because maybe in terms of the betting, I don't know if I could say this fully. I'm hesitant, but when it comes to betting and just the overall analysis and the preparation process that goes into betting fights, it may be my favorite in the entire realm, and maybe my favorite in terms of just being able to cover. I'm a diehard fight fan, and it's an honor just to be able to follow the growth of it, let alone bet it. So I'm passionate about it. I'm happy that I got to share it here with you guys here tonight. And I'll transition into some NBA here momentarily. I just wanted to open with that because, again, it's very relevant. Coming up in just a few minutes, the pay-per-view card starts. So plenty more combat sports in the near future to come here, right here on Full Tilt. But we're going to take a quick break where Richard will join you back on the set, and I will explain to Richard the difference in NBA betting compared to NFL betting. That point spread is still crucial. That's the common denominator, but there are other factors at play here. So be sure to stick around for that as Richard joins me after the break. It's Full Tilt Vegas here on Go Live Vegas on a Saturday night. We're talking NBA betting next.
Ready? We're back here, Go Live Vegas Studios. This is Full Tilt Vegas. Yeah, that was a trader that Aaron did here for me. I shot all that on 3 different cameras, and he went ahead and edited it. So anybody interested in doing anything, you can contact Aaron here in the Go Live Vegas platform or any of the, you got phone numbers. I'm trying to remember what it was, 855-502-4321. Yeah, you can do that, but he did a fantastic job on that, because I know we got a lot of new people that on Twitter now that probably never seen it. So that trader there, I'm looking for funding. So anybody know anybody interested in funding that? Would love to shoot this, and maybe you could be a co-producer or a associate producer on it. Okay. Yeah, Brett, that's interesting. We're going to talk about the NBA now and these microphones. So, my main question is, I don't know if you want to go into this now, but my main question, like football, I know kind of how to bet football and hedge bet against some of the basketball. I am just about lost. It's something I don't really do. I was playing horses today. I had a horse that was 27-1. He came in third. I actually bet him second, and I put 100 to place on him. He came in second, 27-1. So I didn't hit it, but it was a fantastic challenge. And you can go to 7 through 10 on my Delatory 360 Entertainment, see all about horse racing. Want anything about horse racing, you can go ahead and see that. Okay, Brett, how do you bet? For people out there don't know how to bet basketball, and is there a platform on their phone they can go to and bet it?
Yeah, it's no different than betting the NFL. In fact, it's the exact same. You bet it no differently. It's more so the approach you take. A big point to note here is that it's all ultimately point spread based, much like football is. That's what separates football and basketball from the other sports. It's that line. So you're ultimately going to look at it. You're going to bet it the same way. The difference is the volume attached to it and how many different opportunities there are to bet it. That's why, in a way, basketball is kind of taking the best of both football betting and baseball betting and kind of combining them together. You're taking the principles and like the overall philosophies of betting a point spread and how much a team is going to win or lose by, and you're combining that with the day-to-day turnover that you find in baseball. Where in football, as you saw, if you followed Full Tilt here on Go Live Vegas for the past couple of weeks as we were here along for the ride of the NFL postseason, you have and really just as the same thing applies to the regular season, you have a whole week to analyze these games, to gauge the line movement, the changes. And that's why with such a short turnover in the NBA, that often isn't a factor. So you want to be a little bit more proactive in how you bet. You may not necessarily have that period of time in between where you could see those lines fluctuate and change. A lot of times the lines will solidify, they'll remain a little bit more stagnant, and they'll be overall tighter just because the window of movement isn't as long as they are with a week in between NFL games. So that's the key thing to note here. Look at the point spread the same way you are for football, and look at all the other lines attached to it, the money lines, the total, and of course you could go in on props, individual player props, team props, whatever you want. But again, the first thing you have to do is look at that spread, and that's why I emphasize to people, betting, going from football betting, making this transition that we're basically making now, Richard, is handy because you already are going to be familiar with that point spread. And really quick, I just want to mention this since our technical director, Aaron, brought it up during break where we were kind of shuffling positions here. Drake had a big bet on Jorge Masvidal. He put over $275K on Masvidal at plus 250 to beat Colby Covington. So that kind of alludes to what I was talking about in the last segment. If you're betting on Colby Covington with a huge chalk price at 400, you're not really going to get much, even if you do have a big bankroll. But if you put a 275 grand on it, right, for 275 large on a price like plus 250, you're going to cash out big. And again, it's not specific like betting the favorite would be to maximize your value. You don't have to be specific. Masvidal could win any way under the sun, and Drake or any other likewise bettor who's going that way is going to be able to walk away successful. So that actually segues into another aspect of NBA betting. Do the same thing that you do in football. If you don't want to bet the point spread, look at the money line and look at the value associated with it. If you're betting a favorite or you're betting a minus money price that's not really gonna capitalize in any way in terms of you walking away, even if the ticket cashes, pair it with something where you could boost your profits and maximize your gain.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of betting in March Madness.
Oh yeah.
There's like if I really got involved with betting basketball, I would be looking, personally, I would be looking into hedge betting because that's one of the greatest opportunities when that many games are going on is all the hedge betting you can do when you make your your flat bets or money line bets.
No doubt. And that's a great thing to bring up because in the NBA you could do the same thing because you have so many games over the course of the week. Sure, in the NFL you have a big slate. You have 14 games and you have a Thursday night game and a Monday night game. But NBA, you have it on a day-by-day basis. You could see the Golden State Warriors play on Tuesday, and next thing you know, on Thursday, you're seeing them again. That's a short turnover, and if it's a stint in a stretch in their schedule rather that benefits them, you can make a lot of money from Steph Curry or whoever you're betting on that particular team that week in a very rapidly in a very short increment of time. And that's why you see teams when they get hot. Ultimately, basketball is a game of runs anyway. So on a game-by-game basis, that's what's often determines the outcome of these games, which is much different than football. Football, a lot of times you could watch a game early on, and sure, there may be a chance, Richard, that a team scores late, that a team has a backdoor cover, but a lot of times at what certain point the game is quote-unquote over, even in the NFL where it's, they like to say it's never over when it's over, but still that's a rarity. A lot of times when a game is out of hand, it's just that, it's out of hand. Basketball, you could look at a mid-second period score and think, this is over, and the next thing you know, you turn into the game 30, 45 minutes later and you think, what the hell just happened? That's why betting basketball is tough on the point spread because much like the NFL, where you see those key numbers of 3, 4, and 7, you often see in the NBA something very similar, key numbers of around 2, 4, 5, those short deficits where you see NBA games usually fall on, and that's why betting the point spread is a little trickier. But due to the fact that you kind of, I guess you could say, manage your risk a little easier with the multiple opportunities for profit, while also, you know, you could cut your, like, but that kind of goes hand in hand with managing risk. You could cut your losses and maximize your gains due to the fact that you have so many games to work with all throughout the week.
I think a lot of people out there want to know, what is your favorite team? And I heard there's rumors, I don't know if it's true, are there Las Vegas trying to get a basketball team here?
Yeah, that's been in the talks for a while. A lot of people are wondering what team it's going to be. You know, there's a couple of clubs in both Major League Baseball and the NBA that are in a similar position to how the Phoenix Coyotes were just a couple of years ago in the NHL. They were struggling financially. They were struggling just overall within their market, and they thought for a long time it was projected that they would be the team that would come over to Vegas. We wound up getting an expansion team, and we saw what happened there with the Golden Knights. But a lot of people, with the success of the Raiders and the fact that Vegas has proven to be a legitimate sports market where pro sports can thrive, whether it be just through the casual fandom or the betting aspect like we talk about here, they've kind of served as the template, both as an expansion team and as a team that has come over, you know, a story team like the Raiders. Now teams are wanting to get in on that. You see the fight game thrive here. You have numerous venues that could house any sport with the exception of baseball. That's going to be the main roadblock there. What kind of venue would they build and where would they build it? For basketball, you already have something with T-Mobile. You could kind of make that transition seamless. It would just be about which owner and which ball club would be down to do it. So those talks are going to continue to heat up. And even though we may still be a few years away, every year, kind of like what we saw with the Raiders throughout, you know, 2016, 2017 leading up into the announcement, or even at the Knights leading up throughout 2015 and 2016 leading up to the announcement. We're going to start seeing that now, to where you may not be able to put your thumb on a date. I think it's going to happen. But rest assured, we're going to have some type of major announcement in the next year and a half where either a Major League Baseball franchise or an NBA franchise is going to make their way out to Vegas. And to answer your previous question, that actually works perfect here as we wrap things up on Full Tilt with about 3 minutes left. Right now, I'm not betting any of the games because, again, my focus of the weekend has mainly been on the fight aspect. Again, like I mentioned before, we wrapped the last segment. I'm highly passionate about the fights, both in terms of betting and in terms of general fandom. So I dive into it deeply, whether I'm playing a lot of bouts on the card or not. Again, I only have one bout, the main event that I'm playing on this card, and I'm kind of focusing on that as my official pick for this particular week. But if you're looking for something with a little more evergreen and some long-term effects, I'm going to fire on some futures. And this is perfect because when I first joined Full Tilt, we were approaching the end of the regular season, the NFL postseason. I couldn't really explain how to bet NFL futures. I will here in the next few weeks as we see free agency and the draft start to change some of those odds. But now is a perfect time, past the deadline for the trade, past the All-Star break. Now is a perfect time to fire on some NBA futures, and I will do that right now. I like the 76ers to win the Eastern Conference. I think Brooklyn and Milwaukee could still very likely win it, but I will gladly throw some drinking money, some pocket change at plus 350 because, again, it's all about the value. I don't need to throw the kitchen sink on a future price for the 76ers to win the East at that price because if I just throw a little bit at plus 350, for me, it'll be a cool bet. That's what's fun about future bets. Sometimes, you'll bet a long shot and you'll throw everything that you have on it and you'll pay out big. There were people who paid out big by betting the Bengals to win the AFC title when the Bengals on that future board last year at this time were way down there. So it could pay out big for you even if the team just gets there. And that's why I like this to win the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm not projecting the 76ers to win it all, but I do project them to win the East and get to the finals. I think the Joel Embiid, James Harden move is going to start to solidify more and more. It's already looking sharp, and I think that will continue. Give me the 76ers to win the East, and I think the Phoenix Suns, what we saw last year wasn't an apparition. It wasn't a smokescreen. They are that good, the way they're structured, the way they're built. Obviously, when Ayton and everybody is clicking and Chris Paul's healthy, they're a different team, and it ultimately goes through Devin Booker and some of those other wing players like we see in Cam Johnson. So give me the Suns at plus 170 to win the West right now, and give me the 76ers at plus 350 to win the East. And if those two teams go at it in the finals, those will be 2 cash tickets, and then we'll go from there. But a long way to go, and as we get deeper and deeper into the second half of the NBA season, as we move in through the spring, I'll explain more on a game-by-game basis of how to bet some of these games and some of these lines.
Okay, there you have it. You guys want to make some of these bets? You can take Brett. He's a really good analyst. He used to work for ESPN. And I'm going to say goodbye here from Full Tilt Vegas. Brett, you want to say goodbye?
Goodbye, and follow me on Twitter at Brett Lawson LV, and make sure to check us out on all our video and audio platforms, Alexa, the Go Live Vegas app, and everywhere on Facebook, YouTube, Instagram, on Twitter. We'll be there, and we'll be back in action next week here on Full Tilt Vegas.
See you next week.
Yes, sir.